Good evening and welcome to the special school committee meeting of Tuesday, February 6th, 2017. We'll call this meeting to order and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as always, I'll read the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. And with that, we go to public comment. There's no one from the public here to speak. So I'll go into chairman's comments, and I'll just offer my thanks to WCAT, to the school committee members for our special meeting tonight, meeting on an off week, so I appreciate that. The first agenda item tonight is the composition of the screening committee for our superintendent search process. There have been a few requests that have come in since our last meeting, and I'll flip it over to Mr. Markham if he wants to summarize some of those.
Certainly, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. There have been, as you may have seen, there was a following up from the last meeting where the school committee officially approved the process. The process then began in earnest the day after, with informing each of the constituent groups that the committee had approved to select a representative to the screening committee. Those names have all come in between last Friday and Monday, meaning yesterday, as well as some additional requests for information, additional requests for us to consider other additions to the screening committee. And so I bring those also forward this evening. I have typed this up for the purposes of hopefully keeping people aware and seeing material in front of you. So there are three motions that are being proposed, two of which would be acted upon depending on the success of the committee's view on motion number one. Before I read motion number one, just wanted to summarize that it had been in a consideration to add an additional representative from town government to support the work of the screening committee. That is not uncommon, at least in past practice. The last time that we formed such a committee, we had asked of the town administration to be so kind as to provide two representatives from town hall, town government, and that is something that we'd like to bring forward as well tonight, to add an additional delegate or additional representative representing the town administration. With some specificity around that, I share with the committee this evening a letter that I received on behalf of the superintendent search process from Town Administrator Mayo, specifically requesting that not only that an additional position as had we done in the past, but that additional position, should it be appointed or allowed rather by the committee, that he would intend to recommend that the Chief of Police, Richard Smith, constitute or compose that position. We have not had the opportunity, obviously, in the last 2 weeks to meet. So it would be, I cannot represent that as work of the subcommittee. But certainly, as the chair of the subcommittee and as an individual member, I'm bringing that forward as input received in the course of the last weeks or last 2 weeks. So, issue number one is that I would recommend that we add a position of the representing town government, and that be the chief of police, to the screening committee. In addition, to that, I'm recommending the addition of a second position to the screening committee, and that be a representative of the Wakefield Alumni Association, Also, an important group to the work that we do, an important set of stakeholders. I find personally there to be some real value to that as an additional voice around the table. That person could represent not so much the vested interest of maybe a broader view as opposed to things that are going on, immediately in the schools or in the community. And would recommend, as you read, that a well-known Wakefield alumni and a leader of alumni, as well as a former member of this committee, I'd recommend that Dr. Kevin Piscadlo be our nominee for that position. So that is a summary. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read motion number 1.
Please.
I move to amend the composition of the Superintendent Screening Committee to include a second representative from Town Administration and a representative of the Wakefield Memorial High School Alumni Association. These 2 additions shall bring the total Screening Committee membership to 17.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Morgan.
Does this group, can they meet with a quorum? I'm still concerned, I brought this up at the last meeting, of the large size of the group, and now we're making it even larger, potentially. And the dates of the 23rd to the 16th, are you going to be able to schedule meetings? Are you confident that you'll be able to schedule meetings with all 17? I'm just thinking, when we try to schedule our own subcommittee meetings of 3, it's challenging, and within 3 weeks, I think this might be tough.
My reaction to that is I disagree. The size of the committee now being 15, I'm not sure that 17 makes that any more challenging. But notwithstanding your point, I agree with your point. What I would intend to do, and what I had done in writing, let me say what I've done in writing when reaching out to the leadership of the stakeholders. I did ask them in an email when I reached out to them to inform the committee. I attached a copy of the schedule, okay. And I said, please ask those that you are seeking to be members. Please inform them of the schedule. It is a very busy half of February and our latter half of February and March. It's a very busy time, and if someone is not able to make the commitment, this is really what is required. I also was even more direct in saying attendance at all meetings would be a requirement, that it would not be appropriate for one to participate in one interview for a candidate and not participate in all. So I would, so the representative groups were aware of that sort of as a guiding light, if you will. If members can't make it, then I guess it would fall upon the full group, or certainly, I guess, me as chair to say, we'll have to ask you to step aside, that the expectation should be that you make all the meetings.
Great, thank you.
As far as a quorum, it should be unanimous. Everyone should be there.
I don't want to see the dates slip. That's my concern. So.
Yeah, excellent point. It's a very aggressive schedule. Yeah.
Ms. Fortier.
So when we last looked at the group, I was happy that it was split between, 7 members who are employees, and 7 members of the community, most of whom were parents, and then of course a few, 2 or I think 3 others were members of the town government. So now it's a little heavier on the sort of community side and a little lighter on the teacher and the employee side. So I'm just bringing that up as not really a huge concern, but it was something that I was happy about before, that it was equitable, it felt. Because I do want to hear the voices of those people who would be working most directly with the superintendent, and making sure that they're, represented appropriately.
Any other discussion? Mr. Liakos?
Tom, could you just tell us why we don't have yet the community member at large? Where does that stand?
So that's a great point. The community member at large, you may recall, was to be chosen from random,
Okay.
which is what this box is here.
Oh, the box, all right.
We have, there was a posting in the Wakefield Item a week and a half ago or thereabouts that advertised that and saying people to submit their intention via
Okay.
email to me. There are names in this box. They're written on index cards. And our top number one camera person is going to select a name
All
at the
right.
correct time, and that
Great.
name will then be added to this.
Thanks.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Oh, sorry. Is this, because I had a question about the process. Is this an appropriate time, or are we going to get to process after we select the?
I mean, we can certainly discuss process. I think in the composition of the screening committee, there's, as Ms. Morgan brought up, there's a great deal of process involved, so absolutely feel free.
It was really just about advertising, where and when we're going to be advertising the position.
Oh, it was posted the next day.
Okay,
It was posted on Wednesday, January 24th. And it is in 3 locations right now: the School Spring, the school website at MASC and MASS.
okay, thank you.
And in positions, people have already started applying.
Great, and then, will there be updated information on those sites once we have the screening committee ready, or it's just as soon as people apply, then they get directed into the process?
They do. There is a deadline for applying. Right now, if you seek to apply, you will ultimately be directed to the School Spring website.
Okay,
So really, it's just a posting of vacancy.
right,
And then you go to School Spring, and that's where you actually go through the application process and fill out all the information around that.
got it.
But there's really there's no real updating to be done until the deadline
Right.
has passed for
And
applying.
what's the deadline again?
February 23rd.
23rd, okay. Great, thank you.
I did also include as part of a handout, which, and this is also posted on our website, working with the superintendent and, if I may, while I'm working with the superintendent and the IT director, we put a section on the Wakefield Public Schools website. That's the first link on the far right that says superintendent search process. And to date, it has PDFs of all of the documents that have been provided by the subcommittee and approved by the full school committee. So if you go to that, there will be and it's our intention to keep a running history of documents posted there. And the document that you see, I passed it out just for if the group needed to refer to the timeline, that's one of the documents so posted. So that's here in tonight's handouts, but this is posted on the school department website, the timeline, starting with with number 9, number 1, January 9th, and we're now at step 5, which is February 6th, holding the meeting to discuss and appoint the screening committee members.
Mr. Massey?
Just based on past experience, do you have any estimate at all as far as how many applicants actually apply and how many get narrowed down to interview? Like if you had to guess an estimate or?
Well, certainly, historically.
Just based on last time
The
around,
last
maybe? or-
time, I'm going to speculate, and Chris maybe help you, we probably got 25 or 30 applicants. The screening committee, which I was not on, so I don't know the answer to that. In fact, no, Mr. Piscadlo had represented the school committee at the last search process. He held my role. He was chair of the labor committee that year. So I honestly don't know the number that they narrowed it down to. I don't.
One of my first interactions with school management was I was a member of the screening committee when I was not, before I ran for school committee. And we got it was a stack of applications, and every member needed to read them. And there was a rubric established so you kind of grade how, you know, each one, like a 1, 2, 3, or 4 type
Right.
of thing. And I think we came down, we went from like, you know, like 30 applications to 10 interviews. And on the 10 interviews, we narrowed that down to like 3. I think we intended to narrow it down to 3, but when it came down to it, the 3 and 4 were almost a tie, so we sent 4 ahead to the full school committee, and then the full school committee interviewed those 4 and made their choice from that. And once those
okay.
recommendations are sent forward, the screening committee's work is done.
I see. Okay. Okay. So then, let's say if it gets narrowed down to 5 or 10 applicants that get interviewed by the screening committee, is the expectation that they meet with each one individually, or as a group, I should say?
The applicants,
In person, I should
the
say.
applicants would meet with the 17 individuals in a group interview setting.
Okay. Okay.
And as Mr. Callahan said, then they would then select from, they will create what is called a group of semifinalists, which is a term that needs to be used, because once someone becomes a finalist is when they become public and it becomes before the school committee. So we are not to be in the loop, so to speak, on that. People have the confidential right to apply for a position without the world knowing about it, but when they become narrowed down until they become a finalist is when it becomes a public knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
We have, and I say we because obviously I'm part of it, although I wasn't here at the last meeting. The committee added the expectation that the screening committee would narrow it down to 3 members, 3 finalists.
Okay.
So the screening committee, which we will empower tonight, will do their work. They'll collect all applications, narrow that down to some manageable number to conduct interviews, and their responsibility will be to present 3
To us.
nominees, 3 finalists to the full school committee for then our public vetting.
Got it. Thank you.
Maybe we won't even know who those 30 applicants were.
Right.
We'll only know the finalists.
The Alumni Association different from the Alumni Foundation?
No, it's not. That
Okay.
was my haste. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are we sure Dr. Piscadlo is still a member of that group?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Am I correct that there's a typo in his spelling of his
There
name?
is,
You are
yes.
correct,
Yeah,
yes.
I gave it to, I showed Judy the correct spelling.
You are correct.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, everyone, passes unanimously. Okay, so we have a 17-member screening committee. The names of the members, 2 which need to go ahead and be appointed. I think maybe now, Mr. Markham, might be a fine time to call up Virginia and see if she can help
Virginia.
us out.
So while Virginia is taking off her gear and approaching, I would like to, on behalf of the full committee, if I may,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, to thank everyone from the community that had applied, to thank everyone for their interest in this process. It's an incredibly important process to the future educational health of the school department, and the members of the community that did apply, certainly thank you for that consideration. And certainly only one person will be selected from among the group of applicants, but certainly it's nice to see the pretty solid interest out there in the community. So, Virginia, if we may, the names are in here on cards. Just one. Yeah, that will be complicated.
Excellent.
Okay. And we have, the name is Marcy Seidman.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia.
Okay, so having pulled the name for our community member at large, Mr. Markham has prepared a motion that names each of the individuals on our screening committee. I wonder if, Mr. Markham, you wouldn't mind just making
Certainly.
that motion?
So this, you have it in writing. It's the so-called recommended motion number 2. In accordance with the school committee's approved process for the superintendent's search as amended, I move that the following individuals be appointed as delegated representatives of the corresponding stakeholder groups for the Wakefield Public Schools to serve on the 2018 Screening Committee.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded.
Should we read the names?
I think we should
into the
probably-
into the
Yeah.
record? Certainly, we
Why
have them in front of
not?
us, but
Sure, yeah.
certainly for the.
Sure, yeah,
record.
absolutely.
I guess myself, representing the school committee as chairman of the Labor Relations Subcommittee. Ms. Estelle Burdick, representing Teachers Unit A. Ms. Burdick is a teacher at the Woodville School. Mr. Harry Robinson, a teacher at Wakefield High School. Mr. Andrew Tetrault, the assistant principal for the Galvin Middle School. Jane McConnell, a paraprofessional at the Galvin Middle School. Ms. Deborah Calora, the principal of the Greenwood Elementary School. Adam Colantoni, the principal of the Galvin Middle School. Maria Serrara, representing the central office. She's the director of facilities and transportation. Lee Faber, representing the elementary school PTOs. Ms. Faber is a parent at the Woodville School. Mr. Matthew Leary, representing the Galvin Middle School PTO. Ms. Laurie Hunt, representing the high school PTSA. Ms. Chrissy Loftus, representing the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. Ms. Mary Letchford, representing the Wakefield Educational Foundation. She's currently serving as its treasurer. Mr. Stephen Mayo, representing the town of Wakefield. He's the town administrator. Mr. Richard Smith, also representing the town of Wakefield, police chief. Dr. Kevin Piscadlo, the Wakefield Alumni Foundation, a member and former leader of that organization. And now with the picking of the community member at large, Ms. Marcy Seidman.
Thank you, Mr. Markham. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Great, seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, and we have our screening committee. And thank you, Mr. Markham, for preparing that document. Okay, future dates and agenda. So we'll be back here next Tuesday for our regular school committee meeting. School committee comments, Mr. Massey. Ms. Morgan. Mr. Callahan.
Just thank you to all those who volunteered to serve.
Mr. Liakos.
Ditto.
Ms. Fortier. Mr. Markham.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. And my thanks as well to Mr. Markham for putting these documents, as he mentioned, on the Wakefield Public Schools website. They're up there for everybody to view and will be updated. So my thanks, and everybody should check them out. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn the special meeting of the Wakefield School Committee from February 6, 2018.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.